Hello, and welcome to another episode of Reviews in a Rabbit Onesie, the show in which I, Dan Leith, review things in a rabbit onesie. Psycho Beaver, qu'est-ce que c'est? Better run far away. That's right, the two movies that we're putting head to head this week are both about unlikely killer animals, contain some hilarious puppetry, and are both at times pretty gross. It's Sheep vs Beavers. Damn, ew. That's a reference to Babe the Sheep Pig. Not sure if it translates, but fuck it. Which brings us to movie number 1, 2007's Black Sheep. Now this is a particularly daft New Zealand-based horror comedy about mutant killer sheep. The movie is about two brothers, Angus and Henry, who grew up on a sheep farm. Angus, who seems to be a bit of a weird, limpy, sheep-killing fucker, murders Henry's favourite sheep, Dudley. Then he pranks him by wearing its carcass. Needless to say, this fucks Henry up big time. Avinophobia is the correct term for someone who has a fear of sheep. Fast forward 15 years later and we see Henry coming back to the farm. He's sitting in a taxi shitting himself because it's practically drowning in sheep. But after a few terrifying moments, the sheep bugger off and he finally makes it back to the farm. He asks the taxi guy to wait for him, but we already see that the fare is $431. Mind you, that's New Zealand dollars, so I don't know how expensive that is. Sounds pretty expensive, but it could just be like a tenner. I don't know. Anyway, the brothers are reunited on the farm, but things have changed since Henry was last there. Because it turns out that Angus has been using genetic engineering to make the perfect sheep.
I have a dream for the future.
Whatever that means. Two environmentalist-type characters show up. It's a fella called Grant and a girl called Experience. They steal a mutant lamb fetus in a jar, then the jar breaks, and then this hilarious mutant lamb fetus puppet attacks. I'm a sucker for bad puppetry, so this actually tickled me quite a lot. This movie really answers the question, how long can an earlobe stretch for before it's torn off? Anyway, this lamb fetus attack basically results in a zombie sheep outbreak.
What's that noise?
They're coming to get you, Barbara. And then Henry has to confront his fear of sheep to help the rest of the cast survive. It's pretty daft shit, alright? On paper, this sounds great. In execution, it's a bit of a mixed bag. It's actually pretty well shot at times, foreboding and sinister shots of sheep, which I didn't think could really be possible, but they do it wonderfully in this film. Shots of shadowy, sinister sheep. And there's a lot of great madcap puppetry. I mean, a puppet sheep driving a truck off a cliff is very entertaining. And there's a lot of interesting and fucked up scenes. They stumble across the lab where there's lots of Mengele-style sheep experiments taking place. And there's some interesting scenes of spontaneous cellular transferal. But unfortunately, it's the human cast that really lets this film down. That and the script. The jokes are very hit and miss in this film, and unfortunately, most of them miss. The environmentalist character of Experience makes terrible jokes about feng shui. In fact, most of Experience's dialogue is an experience, and not a good one at that. Bizarrely, the thing that bothers me the most is the lack of puns. This movie sets them up scene after scene, and then it's misfire after misfire. There's a scene where they fall into an awful pit. That would be awful. And they set a sheep on fire and no one even mentions roast lamb.
I hope you realise I gave up dinner with Tom Cruise for this.
Never mind, love. You can go out with him any night.
There's some really cool moments near the end of the film. There's like a sheep minotaur. So there's a fleece in a maze, but it's bloody and not golden. And there's a hilarious mass sheep attack. I mean, they bite a man's mouth off. Fucking hell. I don't want to bleed around the bush. I don't know what else to say. Actually, I'm feeling pretty sheepish after this. Maybe puns aren't the be-all and end-all, but I still feel like this movie missed out on so many opportunities. I mean, nobody even tried Abraham you. Where's Zombie Apocalypse Babe when you need him? It all gets a bit American Werewolf in sheep's clothing. With nods to Peter Jackson's Brain Dead. But unfortunately, it's not a patch on either. But there is a scene where a sheep bites a man's dick off. What did I learn from this movie? I learned that barking like a dog at a mutant zombie sheep won't deter it. And that mint sauce is like hydrochloric acid to zombie sheep. So there you go. That's Black Sheep. The concept and the madcap puppetry are glorious, but the human performances and script are just pretty painful at times. 2 out of 5 bug-eyed puppets. Which brings us to movie number 2, 2014's Zombeavers. I mean, with a title like this, you're either going to have the best time of your life or the worst time, but thankfully it falls more into the former category. This movie starts strong. It opens on comedian Bill Burr driving a truck.
Man, you see that deer up there?
Yeah, I see.
He talks about dating men, runs over a deer,
I don't think you do.
and spills radioactive waste into a lake. That's the setup. Then what follows is a really fun credits sequence. It's like the B-movie equivalent of a Bond opening. It knows exactly what it's doing. So we follow the cast of 3 girls as they decide to leave their boy troubles behind and go to a remote cabin by a lake.
My butt hurts. Yeah, thanks to your boyfriend.
Wait a minute, how was she driving in those heels?
Home sweet home.
Cliched characters with purposefully awful dialogue, dick pics, and 8-bit music. It's a movie that knows that it's ridiculous and is even more funny because it buys into it.
What brings you across the lake?
We were looking for beavers.
Well, hell, ain't we all?
The dialogue in this movie is hilarious. This neighbor character comes over and talks about her daughter being a bitch. Seriously, my daughter is a real piece of work and not that attractive. Brilliant. And then there's a lot of banter about having no cell phone service. It really knows what it's parroting and it spoofs it so well. The cast, for the most part, are absolutely hilarious.
This may sound crazy, but we need to have an orgy.
There's a lot of daft, crude humor with lines like, damn, I want to see a beaver. And of course, there's lots of boobs.
All right, let's get naked. What are you doing?
The girls fail to pick up that something is horribly wrong at this lake,
Yuck. Can we please go swimming now?
mistaking toxic waste for green beaver urine. And there's this baseball cap just floating down the river saying #1 dad on it. So following in the cliches of the teen horror movies, the boys crash the girls' holiday. I was actually worried at this point that the comedy was going to go downhill, but thankfully the lads are hilarious and also taking the piss out of themselves.
I haven't had sex in 36 hours. You know when your foot's asleep? My dick's asleep.
The brilliant sex scene with the comic relief character is just shouting random things to his girlfriend, taking her from behind, shouting, "You're way too hot for me."
Oh, I feel like a Power Ranger.
So self-aware and so fucking funny. And then shit hits the fan and the beavers show up. And when that first beaver appears in the bathroom, I laughed like a fucking madman. It's the worst, best puppetry I've ever seen in my life. It's brilliant. Jen, who sees the first beaver, runs out of the bathroom crying. And instead of someone saying, "What's wrong?" the line she gets given is, "Jen, you're a really ugly crier." It's just the sort of fucking wonderful nonsense that this film is.
I've never seen a real beaver before up close, so...
Me neither.
Well, maybe you should try going down on me once in a while, Bub.
Then they all run out of the cabin and go straight into the lake. With the line, "The lake is safer than the cabin." I love this fucking logic. I don't want to give too many of the gags or what happens away because you should really fucking watch this film. But there's lots of hilarious banter with a severed foot.
The fuck?
Is that blood?
There's an incredible scene with a half-severed beaver going towards a girl's beaver. More incredible dialogue, this time from the neighbors.
Oh, it's just those kids scissoring each other to Lady Gaga.
Scissoring to Lady Gaga. And then there's a lot of great knifing of beavers. A lesbian beaver transformation scene. And a defending the cabin whack-a-mole style whack-a-beaver scene. It's just the perfect parody of all of the films I fucking grew up on. It's short, it's concise, the humor never stops, and it's fucking hilarious. It even has outtakes at the end of the film showing that the cast had just as much fun making it as I did watching it, and the song in the credits. Mwah, magnificent. Oh, and of course there's a scene where a beaver bites the man's dick off. What did I learn from this movie? I learned that the whole point of a beaver is it loves to chomp wood. And I learned that zombie beavers are monogamous. Not like us. I also learned that I might think girls with beaver tails are sexy. Actually, I don't know if I could say I learned that. I'm a pretty weird guy. Anyway, that's Zombeavers. Fairly cheap looking, but it's hilarious. 4 out of 5 bug-eyed puppets. Anyway, thank you for watching Reviews in a Rabbit Onesie. I've been Dan Leith. If you like this video, then please like, share, subscribe. I'll be moving on to a special project that I like to call Dantober next month. Basically, I try to watch 31 horror movies that I've never seen before. So I will be keeping you up to date on the highlights of those. And if you have any suggestions of movies I could watch for it, then please let me know. Anyway, stay safe, stay sane, and stay away from those filthy, hairy beavers.
Finn.